Welcome to the Soul of Medicine. Welcome, everybody, and so nice to see you both. Hi, Megan.
Hello. Thank you for having me. So nice to see you both too.
Oh, it's so great to have you on. So I'll just do an awesome introduction about you, if that's okay. So this week's podcast features holistic coach, nurse, human design expert, and founder of Mindfully You, Megan. She remembers struggling to see the bigger picture her first day of nursing school. After graduating, Megan soon realized that she wanted to care for others, and the system that she was working in didn't align. That sounds very familiar because they're two vastly different arenas. It took having a kiddo to walk away and create a container to share her gifts with the world. She chased what lit her soul up, and it brought her to life. After several life challenges, she found human design. Human design, which you'll talk more about, is a holistic self-knowledge system that can help guide one to better understanding of themselves and their energy. Before Megan knew her human design, she was ashamed of her uniqueness, living a cookie cutter life, but not feeling at all fulfilled. And human design was the turning point that gave her the permission slip to be authentically her. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So I met Megan. I was looking for some help writing some articles and found you. I was mainly looking for astrology writers, and you so brilliantly said, well, hey, what about human design? That is such a great intro for people, to learn about their human design. And that was that's pretty accurate. Astrology can be a little complex, although it's very fascinating. I had known about human design and had done my own chart, maybe last year, and found that so fascinating about how I operate, how I best operate. And the cool thing about it was I think most of us are just, when we discover how we're meant to operate in the world and our energy type, I felt like my whole life isn't a mistake. The things that I like and the way that I operate and my chaoticness sometimes is supposed to be like that, right?
It's complete validation.
It's complete validation of our choices sometimes, or the way we do things. And when we have a world that expects you to be one way, particularly, as early as schooling, you need to sit still, you have to do this curriculum, you have to be a good student and to be a good person, you need to stick with things, stick in one place. The longer you're there, the better. And I so don't operate that way. I love to change things around constantly. And that's sort of not the kinds of qualities that, for instance, people want to hire. And that's why we're become entrepreneurs, because we have to do our own thing and to fit, like you said, in that cookie cutter way, in that cookie cutter box. And it just, I feel when people aren't aligned to their true nature, this is when disease starts to happen, because it's so stressful, right? And we run those adrenals and we try to shape shift according to what other people want for us, and we're just not going in alignment with who we are. And that's when our bodies start to break down. We're in chronic inflammation all the time, which then leads to all these chronic illnesses. And, when we try to look for root causes, this is actually the main root cause. Would you agree, Megan?
Oh, 100%. I truly believe that if, from infancy, if we were allowed to explore our own self and weren't told, you need to be this way versus this way, and we were allowed to create our own beliefs, our own values, that there would be much less incidence of disease. Would there still be some cases? Of course, it's life, but would there be as much mental and emotional trauma? I don't think so. Would there be so many autoimmune conditions? I don't think so, but we will never know that until, more people become aware of the life that they are living and truly own themselves for who they are and experiment with life that way.
Could you tell us your story going from nursing school or nursing as a career to holistic healing? And one thing that I loved really about you was that you were a nurse, and I think and we talked about this on a earlier call about having knowledge of both worlds of holistic healing and also this clinical acumen. And I think, as a practitioner, having our feet in both worlds is actually helpful for our clients because we understand where they're coming from and maybe what they've had and how they're being evaluated, and then guiding them, to a more whole healing experience.
Yeah, so before I found human design, I truly was living the American dream. I had went to college as I was, thought that I should. I landed a good job as a registered nurse. I married my husband and God bought a house not too far from my hometown. And then I became pregnant, and those things started to click that I was like, well, maybe I need to change the way I'm doing this. Maybe I don't want to work 16-hour shifts. And so I started researching, but at the time on the outside, I had my life all figured out, right? Like I was checking every box that I was told to check. I looked very successful, but I could already tell that like adding a kid to the mix was not how I wanted to spend my motherhood. And so the day came that I had to drop my 8-week old boy off at daycare. And I just remember feeling like not even competent to take care of myself with such a short maternity leave. And let alone I was, had this vast responsibility of, using these sliding scales to prescribe morphine. And it was just like, it was so surreal to me that this is how our world operates. And no wonder there was so many mistakes with medications. No wonder there was like such a huge gap, in our system if this was how I was going to live the rest of my life. And it was probably about a month after I returned to work after my short maternity leave, and I had a really long day. It was like 14, 16-hour day or something like that. I had a death visit, and the family was having like very complicated grieving, and there was just a lot of elements that went into it. And I remember before I went home, I saw a video that my husband had sent to me, and my son had rolled over for the first time. And my heart just froze. Like my whole world was just like very, very questionable, that there was this beautiful world that was at home, but yet I was in this like mundane, very dark, very dreary, very systemized job, if you will. And I remember just making the promise to myself, like, there's got to be a different way. There's got to be a different way to live. There has to be, that happier, healthier life out there that I can model for my child, and not go home and just be in this shut off place from caring for people that are struggling with death. And so I started filling out the paperwork to obtain my license to open my own daycare. I knew it was very needed in the area, and I knew it was, I guess you could say, a quick way out, to make a sustainable living. And so I did that. And that was just really the portal of my whole holistic healing journey, was just giving myself the permission slip to go for it. Right. And I always knew that I wanted to create a big impact when I went into nursing. And so when I went into nursing, I thought that I could change the whole system.
Mhm.
And I remember speaking my mind, a couple of meetings, and it just was not well received.
Oh,
And I was a
yeah.
very young nurse, and I was just learning, like, okay. And so that was kind of just like, okay, the exit's over here. Okay, I'll go find another way, And I was presented with the opportunity to obtain my self-love certification through a coaching program. And so I hopped on that bandwagon, and then it just kind of spiraled from there. I found Reiki, I found essential oils, I found human design, and I guess created this whole journey of what I always knew was out there. But yeah, it really is just kind of walking away from what I thought I was supposed to do and just following the path of what my soul always knew, which isn't very, very heavily traveled. And so it is a hard path to walk away from. But I'm glad I also had my nursing experience because it really does allow you to see that full circle of all the different aspects of life. Yeah, I mean, when I started to discover that like people get sick from like deficiencies, toxicities, and unresolved emotions, that knowledge really started to change my own life. And I watched it start to change my family's life. And then, now I get to share that medicine with the world. I truly believe when you know better, you do better. And I'm just on a mission to help other people create awareness in their own little world.
That's a beautiful story. And I so resonate with that. And I think those of us who go into clinical work, we're so hopeful about, this is the avenue of which I want to help people. And so we go into nursing or pharmacy or medicine, what have you. And then you get there. And there's this big realization of this is not working and this is not what I imagined. And it almost is really overwhelming because what can I do as this one person with this massive system that was really built honestly on the focus of illness and not wellness? I mean, that's the main issue. And trying to change it within is really hard. And when you know and feel what you're saying is your soul knows that this other, particularly having a child, I remember I was in the hospital. My children were also probably, 4 and 1 at the time. And gosh, I just remember like not being able to enjoy them and then going to work. And it was all this, how you describe it. It was sad. It was dark. It wasn't hopeful. It almost felt like a dead end of do much. And I was spending all of my time doing that work that didn't seem like it was honored. It was acknowledged that I could even make a dent in the way that I was doing it. And then over here, at home, you just created, it's so beautiful and nurturing, and the stark contrast between the two. And then we're spending most of our time over here. It is sort of this like rude awakening. I'm like, what am I doing? And do I want to do this? So having the courage to, one, acknowledge that, stop for a second and ask that question of like, there's got to be more than this. There's got to be more to me, and I have a lot to offer the world, and this may not be it. And having the courage to go find that and to delve deeper into that and go that path, I think is really phenomenal. So yeah, I so get that.
Well, what's fascinating, like kind of like parallel in both of your stories here, there's this, a lot of times when you think about changing your path, and Megan, I love what you said, that it doesn't mean the path's going to be easy, right? Because you're carving your own path, right? And you're not following someone else's destiny, which is a beautiful thing, and that's what the soul wants. But this parallel is that you both still are helping people, but you're helping people in different ways. So a lot of times I think when people think about this big change in life, they think it's going to be so like diametrically opposed, like life's going to be different, but it can be better, but you can still be in a similar path, if that makes sense. Like you're still helping people, but you found a way for you to do it the best. And I'm kind of seeing this parallel with both of you. Children want to be home or however it flows. And I could probably say the same for me, but it's very interesting. It's not so mysteriously scary if you look at it that way.
yeah, this world really supports, that whole nurturing. You and I both know that children need that nurturing. We need it as mothers, we need it as humans. And this is, if we don't get it, then we end up with disease, sick in the hospital. So, it's like we're trying to operate in two different ways. So the alignment of that, to me, it was like it's not aligned. Does that make sense? It was something just wasn't right. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So can you tell us more about human design, the energy types, and go into that fun stuff?
Yes. So human design is this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful system that allows you to really acknowledge you for who you are at your true core, at your soul purpose, if you will. It was a download by a brilliant man, Ra Aruhu, in 1987. He spent 8 nights and days creating this whole download of a system that now we are able to utilize. He combined the I Ching, the chakra system, the Kabbalah, astrology, and quantum physics. And it creates this energetic blueprint from the time that you were born with the positions of the planet at that time. It has 9 main energy centers of the body, and whether they are open or defined really creates your unique energy type. So it's a very digestible way of discovering who we are. I know you had mentioned astrology before. I was introduced to human design and astrology at the same time, and I found them both fascinating. But astrology was a little bit like, whoa, I don't know if I really speak that language, but I really understand this language. And so I'll get a little bit more into that. But I will first off say that I'm a manifesting generator, which is a hybrid of the generator and manifester. And so at times, if I'm explaining things, it might be like I'm multitasking, but that's just my energy type. And so you'll hear this from that aspect. But in human design, there are 5 energy types. And this is if you think about it, it's your hardwired system. So it was the way that you were designed when you were born to exchange your energy with our world. And so if you think about your phone and your computer, they can essentially do the same thing, but I bet you use your phone for specific purposes as well as your computer for other specific purposes. And if you ever have to swap between the two, it gets a little bit of muddy waters. Maybe it's not the most optimal way to utilize your time or energy, if you will. And so just keep that in mind when we go over the energy type. First of all, there are generators, and they are the doers. They are the builders. They are if you think of how our world was created, the cookie cutter 9-to-5 jobs, these are the people to do it. They increase their skills in a linear way. But what's the catch on that is that they create this sustainable life force energy that we all thrive off of. And so if they are able to discover and contribute to our world in a way that lights them up, we all get to benefit from it. So the key is filling up your own cup first, and then it'll just keep pouring into all of us. And then we have the manifesting generators, and they also make up 35% of the world. So between the two generators, that's 70% of the population makes this beautiful life force energy. But what's different with the manifesting generators from generators is that they're a hybrid with the manifester. And so they have this non-linear element to them, almost as if their whole life is like a spiral staircase. Like they're born at the bottom, and the top is like the point that they're trying to get to. They often take many shortcuts in life and like to multitask, and they're interested in very many different various things, right? And I think the key with manifesting generators is just to allow yourself to do whatever lights you up at that moment, and know that whatever you are interested in is what is going to serve the world most. If you stay in something that doesn't light your soul up, that's kind of how we talked about, that disease occurred. And it's just really beautiful when you see a manifesting generator like able to combine all their talents into one. And it's not necessarily that, they're flaky or they could just never make their mind up, but that truly is how they are hardwired to exchange their energy.
Could I just say one thing? Rob and I are both manifesting generators, which is like, it's hard, girl. Like to be buzzing around with a lot of the inspiration everywhere, and I'm sure you work with people in business together and in relationships together on how to navigate all that. But and there are 3-man gens on this call right now, which is, I think we're doing pretty well staying.
And I'm like, hey, you got to do this. Check it out. And then your response was, what is it? Is this for real, or is this valid? Because yours was just like, for every little component of it, they were just aligned. And I was like, I am so validated for my issues right now.
And it's hard to have the same exact person myself to deal with. I gather that it's be with myself. So, the things that irritated, I'll just say this, me about him were the things that I was doing myself. So what you said about our human design as a man gen to be multitasking all the time, or like doing what inspires us in the moment. I think Rob lives that more than I do. And so, growing up in a very or even in medicine for that matter, like things have to be as such. You have to stay, put and focused, and you can't switch around all the time. Those were the messages in my family and socially, and even in that system that are not highly regarded to be a man gen, in fact, you know what I mean? And so to have that kind of energy type. So fighting that for most of my life, basically, is what I'm saying, led to a lot of exhaustion, led to a lot of confusion, led to a lot of fatigue because of fighting my nature. Do you know what I mean? And so that's basically is how I started out this whole podcast, saying this relationship with not knowing who you are and your energy type, and leading to dis-ease, because we use a lot of other kinds of energy to be something else and to be a different way. So that's why I felt human design has been helpful. Like, no, it's okay that I have a million things going through my mind right now, and that I want to do the thing that inspires me instead of wait for the right moment. Because by doing that and knowing my human design in that way, I feel like my creativity is exponentially on, and people are like, how are you doing that? I'm like, dude, I'm in my flow when I'm like this. I like it like this. So I guess that's that example of the man that you're talking about.
It's beautiful. I love it. And I remember when we first started our conversation, and you were just like, I feel like there's something more, and I just remember saying, like, well, you're doing it. You're just like the wise woman now, right? Like, you're helping everybody else. Yep. See their gifts and talents, and it's beautiful. I'm going to touch on the 3 other energy types. So we have projectors, which make up about 20% of the world. They are a guide. They are here to lead everybody to live more efficiently, work more efficiently. They are able to see this bird's eye view, as if they were soaring above us. They see the things that we can't see. If you think of being in the clouds and viewing that bigger picture, they're able to see that down on the ground, which is very, very beautiful, but also another energy that is not always welcomed. My oldest son is a projector, and it's very hard to listen to a 3-year-old, but you know what? Most of the time he is right. That We have our manifestors, which make up about 8% of the world's population. They are the visionaries. If you think of in the olden days, when people would have this bright idea and then the tribe would work to get things done, that's what the manifestors are here for. They are here to get the ball rolling with their big ideas, but they're not necessarily just here to do it alone. The key for them is to find the right tribe that they can count on to get their ideas into action so that they don't get burnt out. And then we have our reflectors, which make up less than 1% of the world's population. It's this beautiful mirror, or like if you've ever gone early morning or late at night to the lake and it's like this sheet of glass, they do that their whole life. They just reflect everything back, everything that they absorb, the people that they're around, the environment that they're in, the energies of everything in the world. So it really is to everybody's best interest if they have a very, very potent self-care practice. Well, I guess aside from knowing your energy type, it's very helpful. I like to call it the big three: to know your energy type the way that you're hardwired, to be aware of your strategy, which is like the way that you exchange information with the world, or energy with the world, if you will, and your authority, which is the way that you make aligned decisions. And I truly feel that if you start to incorporate those into your daily life and you start to master those three, that the rest of your bonus elements of your human design will just automatically come to you. The best summary of human design that I got for you.
Awesome. So could you go more into that, the strategies? Could you go more into the strategies?
Yeah. Yes. So each energy type has their own strategy. So the generators together, both types of generators and manifesting generators, are here to respond with the world. So they are here to say yes or no to everything that they are presented with. And we are often taught from a very young age just to say yes to everything, right? Like if it's, for the betterment of the other person, say yes. Yep, they need help with them. It's not always very well honored to stand in your power and say no if it's not for you. But the key to the generator beings is to conserve your energy for what truly aligns with you, and know that when you are living in alignment, that will be the best light that you can live for yourself and for everybody else around you. And when I'll add another element to this, when they are in alignment, they feel this sense of satisfaction with life. But when they're not necessarily responding in alignment, they'll feel this sense of like frustration, like that stuck feeling and not quite sure what's going wrong. But it always comes back to just, responding within alignment of who you truly are.
Megan, so could you explain that even deeper? So when somebody is frustrated, then to be conscious of that, then somebody can say, okay, this is frustrating for me. And instead of sitting there being frustrated, what kind of inquiry at that moment could somebody do to unpack that a bit? And what kind of questioning, curiosities on the inside need to happen if somebody can identify, I'm frustrated right now, and maybe stop and think about that a little bit more?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I love that question so much. I think what has helped me personally and what I have seen throughout my life with generator beings and manifesting generator beings is really to give yourself that space. Because when you're in the moment, sometimes that frustration grows a little bit. Or if you're a manifesting generator, it might be like coupled with the anger from the manifesting side. So I think it really is just to draw back, get that space, and get almost like a bigger picture of what is the stem of the frustration. You know, if you're frustrated because of something little, that frustration will disappear right away. But if the frustration like lags on, maybe it's something that's a little bit bigger. You know, if you think about your life is created out of all the ways that you've ever responded in the moment, right? Like what you said yes and what you said no to. All those little yeses and all those little no's can lead up to a very, very big frustration. And so if you are able to just draw back and get that bigger picture, you know, is it your job that's frustrating you? Is it the commute to work? Is it your children, but not necessarily your children? Maybe it's because you haven't taken care of yourself, you know? Like there's so many ways to be frustrated, but I truly do feel that it's just taking that step back and creating the awareness out of all the decisions that we've ever made and just kind of going from there. I know it's a very hard question to kind of pinpoint, but I think, you know, that first step is just to take a step back and create the awareness, and you'll be amazed at once you start to pay attention to what you're actually saying yes and no to, how it impacts your life and how you can feel those different sense of emotions all in one day.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, like, I was, frustrated the other day, and it was just like, why are you so frustrated? Or what about this? And oftentimes it's easier to like, it's that person who's so irritating. And, you know, like you said, creating the time and the space to be like, why am I triggered? Like, what's that triggering in me? You know, it's really an interesting portal because, you know, what I came to was I don't like being interrupted, for instance, or I don't like, I need to focus, right? And what you're saying is I'm more probably frustrated with me versus the other person because they're probably showing me that I need to be more spontaneous in what I'm doing. So is it the frustration is that I haven't created space and time to have the spontaneity to be able to respond to the person who's teaching me to just be more spontaneous, if that makes sense. And what I came to is like, no, well, you're structuring your life too much that there is no room to have these kinds of conversations or to have these kinds of people in your life. And really that stuff does light me up if I'm not as rigid and structured in my life, you know? So it's less about the other person. And in what you're saying is actually a gift of like, oh man, this is really what I need. The universe is just showing me more of what I need, not just trying to irritate me, frustrate me. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think in many ways also it's a lot of times it's like, when are we not lit up? Because, you know, we're hearing these things that are frustrating. These are the really loud things that make us pay attention. But then what are the small nuances that go on in life that they're not loud enough for us to notice, but they're still draining us so slowly because we're not lit up in that way. So I think that's probably where the structure of the human design comes in to guide us, which is cool too.
So then from there, the inquiry would be, then what do I do about it? Do I need a new set of friends? Do I need a new job? Do I need, you know, because I see this a lot, particularly for women. It's just like, how do I control my emotions better? How do I shift myself and be nicer so that I don't have to rock the boat or choose something different and keep status quo? And to me, that's the crux of what the issue is, right? But we don't want to be mean, and we don't want to overstep, and we don't want to make huge changes or make people feel uncomfortable. And what you're saying is that's not really going to serve you in the future or now.
You know, as with anything else, when you do and you respect and honor yourself for who you are, it only benefits the people around you. And it might be this hard transition of you feel like you're letting everybody down, and, it breaks your heart, to walk away from what once was your life. But it's just beautiful. I mean, we are all meant to live this beautiful life. And if anything is draining our energy, it's trying to tell us something. And getting comfortable with uncomfortable is a hard thing.
So you're also a self-love coach. Why is it so many people, particularly women, struggle with self-love? And we're not talking about manis and petties and massages, although that's super fabulous. But could you tell us what constitutes self-love and how we can start to experience and embody that more in our lives?
Yeah, I would love to. Yes, self-love. It's this beautiful, beautiful world that is very, very hard to own at times. But I feel that especially modern day women, when you think about social media, we talked about like the standards from a young age of being people pleasers. But when you think about social media and all these standards that are constantly surrounding us, they're in our back pocket, and we're only seeing the glimpse into everybody's edited and perfected lives, it becomes very easy to feel less than when we don't see that bigger picture, and when we feel less than, and we're constantly surrounded by it on multiple platforms or billboards or commercials or what have you of these perfected, edited women, our self-sabotaging levels become at an all-time high. It's like they're never shut off. We never feel safe to be ourselves because we're constantly comparing ourselves to this not even real version of who we're supposed to be. And I feel like there's such a disconnect between authentic self-love and like the trendy self of the manicures and pedicures, if you will. Society will tell us, just go get a pedicure with your girls and everything will be okay. Just go get a massage and you'll feel a little better. And you only find out that a couple days later, you're still living the same reality. You're still facing those same harsh truths that was the case of why you got that pedicure or massage in the first place. It really is that self-love forces you, when you embark upon this journey, it forces you to dig into the parts that you resented for so long. And it's a very hard thing to do. It's almost like a lifestyle that you decide that you're going to live, and you're going to live on this journey for the rest of your life. It's not like weekend pick me up of this is self-love. It's you make this commitment to yourself to be your best self, to love yourself for who you are, and then the rest is history from there. But it truly is just making that conscious decision of, yes, I might have looked down at myself in the past, but the only way that I'm going to become the fullest version of myself is if I love myself. Because how is anybody else going to get the full capacity of one if that person doesn't own the full capacity of themselves to begin with, if that makes sense?
I think a lot of that starts in childhood also, just being programmed, and not feeling safe. So we have to adapt, to being the nice girl, right? And forgoing our own authenticity. And I think a lot of self-love from my practice with women anyway is that talking to that little girl inside of us. It's like, you're okay, you're safe, you're loved, you're okay, you're safe. I mean, as a constant dialogue, daily, moment to moment, right? And if that could even be the first step of self-love, it's the way we talk to ourselves and not judge ourselves in the moment for every little thing. To me, that starts to change neural pathways into a new way of being. And that's really starting to lay down that foundation of self-love, of self-respect, of safety, self-protection, if you will, is a form of self-love, I think. So
it is, the way we talk to ourselves is so incredibly important. And like you said, we aren't necessarily taught that from a young age. In my experience in parenting, it is very hard to say things nicely versus just saying them very bluntly. But I've also watched it. Son goes off to grandma or grandpa's and they hear something and they come back and they want to talk about their feelings because it hurt their feelings. And it's like at such a young age, we need to be cautious because those words that we model are the words that when we grow into adults that we are going to tell ourselves. It's hard to be gentle. It's a lot easier to control. But when you think about like children from ages 0 to 7 and how they rely on the nervous system of their caregivers and that they're learning everything that their caregivers do and that is going to be, their subconscious when they get older. It really is fascinating just to correlate like the self-love path. What we embark on now is truly healing the wounds of like our caregivers when we were younger.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So, Megan, how could we find out more about human design, our energy types, download our charts, that kind of thing?
Yes. So on my website, mindfullyouwithmegan.com, if you'll scroll down in the middle, there's a couple options to get my chart, and then that'll prompt you to enter in all your information into the database. I will say that the birth time does change a couple things in the chart. So if you're not accurate, just run your chart a couple different times, and whatever feels most aligned with you is the chart to start experimenting with.
Awesome. And how can we find you on social media? You do have a podcast as well. Yeah. Booking sessions with you?
So Instagram, Mindfully You with Megan. My podcast, if you search Mindfully You on Spotify or Mindfully You with Megan. And then you can book a session with me on my website, and I will send you that link to put in the show notes.
Thank you so much. You're such an old soul. Thank you so much for doing this work and following your path, your soul, your energy type. I think you've definitely, embodied it. So it's wonderful to learn from you and so inspiring. So thank you for sharing all your knowledge with us.
Thank you so much. And thank you for creating this beautiful container.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Soul of Medicine podcast, where science meets soul for whole health healing. Are you ready to reclaim your energy, vitality, and soul purpose? Then feel free to head to our website at kcorpusmd.com and schedule an appointment for your root cause review.